Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining today's informational and training webinar for the Presidential AI Challenge. I'm Rachel Haselby, the 4-H Computer Science Specialist here at Purdue University, and I will be guiding you through the details of the challenge and how you can serve as a mentor. A little bit about me, so you know I'm legit. I have been using computers both for fun and for work since 1981. I won't go into all the details, but I do know a lot about computers. To that end, in 2011, I started teaching computer science and digital media at the high school level and did that for 9 years. And then in 2019, I moved over to Extension and became the computer science specialist. So I've been doing that for 6 years. In 2023, it became very obvious that we needed to start learning about AI, both professionally and to educate our youth and make sure that they were up to speed. So started investigating it then in early 2023 and joined teams and worked with people, and at this point tend to do a lot of public speaking about AI and education and et cetera, et cetera. So I wouldn't call myself an expert, but I do know a lot. So on that to that, let's talk about what artificial intelligence is, because it's really hard to teach people how to use it and work with it if you don't really understand what it is. So we'll start there. If you know this, fast forward, I won't be offended. But when a person has 5 things, they're considered to have intelligence. So they have to be able to learn and to reason and perceive, solve problems, and use language. They have to be able to do all 5 of those things. If a computer can do one of those 5, they are considered to be or to have artificial intelligence. So, perceiving, for instance, if my Roomba can tell that the sofa's coming up and it needs to move the other way, then it is considered to be using artificial intelligence. If my phone reads my text to me while I'm driving, that is artificial intelligence. So, but it isn't perceiving that I'm driving, it just reads it because I say read it. So it's not using all of those senses, but it's still considered artificial intelligence, which kind of makes it an umbrella term that covers lots of different types of artificial intelligence. So how does this work? When you're thinking of artificial intelligence, I tend to think of it as an ocean. So there's a level that we can see. So we can see that our phone is reading our text to us. We can see that the large language model, whatever it happens to be, can is reading or is creating things, and we can see that, or it appears to be creating things. Um, but then there's more levels underneath that. So there's layer 2, which is machine learning, and that's where predictions are happening and decision making uh, algorithms are being used, and those are being used based on data. So it's using probabilities, mathematics, statistics, essentially, to learn from the data and make inferences based on the data. And sometimes those inferences are as easy as guessing what the next word or the next sound is going to be, or they might be like what the weather's supposed to be. That's why we have new weather models. Um, and then there are uh, further layers, a kind of a subset of machine learning that's called deep learning, and that uses neural networks, and it also uses huge amounts of data. So when you hear people talk about uh, how un how bad AI is for the environment and how much energy it's using and things like that, this is the level that they're talking about. But it's using and I said the word neural network. So, like our brains, information bounces from node to node to node in our brains, and the same thing happens in artificial intelligence computing. There's nodes, there's blocks or groups of information, and it uses statistics to determine what next group it's going to look at or work from. So, different types of AI. A lot of times we are using AI and not really even realizing it. It is all around us. For instance, natural language processing. I needed an example for natural language processing, so I literally went to Google and screen recorded. Uh, and you can see that it's actually processing and guessing what the next word is going to be. So when your emails, when your texts predict what's going to happen next, that's just natural language processing. Machine learning goes a little bit deeper. It's used to make predictions, to gain insights, or even automate tasks. And then there's natural language generation, where it seems like it's actually creating new new information. I was just talking with someone about a program called Google Notebook LM, and you can actually give it sources. So you have a scholarly article or a couple papers that you can input into there, and then it will actually generate a podcast based on the information in those papers to make it a little bit easier for you to learn that information. So that would be an example of natural language generation. Image recognition is, I'm smiling because I don't trust image recognition at all, and I'll explain why in a minute. But image recognition is probably one of the most recognizable forms, because a lot of us use that to unlock our phones so that nobody else in the world can unlock our phone because nobody else looks exactly like us. So common ways that AI is used. Some examples would include facial recognition. Facial recognition is what we use to unlock our phones. The TSA uses it to allow us onto international flights, things like that. So it's used really, really heavily. It's probably the most recognizable. The next one would be email automation and filtering. This is, and a lot of us use this to kind of hide that spam. So when we oftentimes we'll have multiple emails, we'll have our main email and then we'll have a throwaway email, but sometimes that spam stuff still gets through and gets into your main email if somebody sells your stuff. So you can use that email automation and filtering to block that. I also use it, I get information, oddly about AI from, not oddly, about AI from a specific organization that's always really good, but they're prolific. They send a lot. So I automatically move anything that comes from that organization into its own folder so that when I have time, I can sort through that folder and act on that stuff. So email automation and filtering is really awesome that way. Financial accuracy can be used. I use it. I'm a member of an owner of a farm, a family farm, and I connect my financial information to my bank account, and it just pulls it right over, and then I don't have to manually type everything into our accounting software, so it's quite nice that way. And it puts it right where it's supposed to go. I do have to double check, but it does for the most part. I'm not going to talk a whole lot about healthcare because I don't consider myself an expert in any way. With healthcare advancements in AI, what I can tell you is that there's a lot going on. They being the scientists and the AI and the businesses are creating softwares that and techniques to identify medications, tailor medications. They're creating, I don't know, all kinds of amazing things through healthcare and advancing healthcare, but I'm not going to pretend to be an expert. Voice to text, I talked about that a little earlier. I use it all the time when I drive, and I'm sure that you probably use it at various points. It's just much faster than and safer, depending on what you're doing, than typing out a text message. Or it's also very handy for people who maybe have disabilities and need to be able to communicate verbally with their computers. Predictive analytics, probably the least accurate form of AI. This would be the machine learning and garbage in, garbage out kind of thing. So if it's analyzing really good data, then you can usually get very good data back or very good information and predictions back. But for instance, the weather is predicted often using AI now, and sometimes that's just a little hairy. And other things, market analysis in businesses, things like that. So sometimes it's amazing, and sometimes it's just a little hairy. So you have to be careful of that. Oops. All right. So how does artificial intelligence affect youth education? So just pause for a minute and think about why it's important uh, to teach youth about artificial intelligence and make sure that they understand what it is. So I'm just going to kind of be quiet and let you think on that. And I'll let you pause if I don't give you enough time. So I'm going to go ahead and move on. So why should we teach youth what artificial intelligence is? Are there benefits? Is it worthwhile to do? And my answer is yes, we should be teaching kids about AI. First of all, you can use AI tools to personalize their education. You can adjust content, you can adjust uh, um, assessments. You can actually create tutors using AI so that it adjusts and personalizes that child's education. It also can be very fun. You can use it to help kids with creative writing, partner with an AI bot. You can actually have them interview historical figures. There's there's apps in that can do that, or chatbots, I guess, that can do things like that. So it can be very fun for them. They also can create their own chatbots that only look at data that they're interested in, so they can maybe learn a little bit more in depth about a topic. Efficiency, it's used a lot by teachers to help create and modify lessons and personalize lessons for youth. One of my things that I think are really important in education is skill development and critical thinking. So, evaluating what AI does and thinking through what it's putting out is actually a very valuable skill for our youth today. Prompt engineering is another one that I think most people recognize, and just being literate and understanding what AI is also something we should be teaching. And it also really opens up accessibility, text to speech, translation, simplifying texts, things like that makes things very accessible for those people who aren't following the mainstream educational pathway. There's also concerns and things that we need to worry about. AI uses statistics to analyze and create or appear to create new data. That opens up the possibility that there's bias in that data. If there's bias in that data, and there pretty much always is because data is created by people, AI can really focus on that and make it a very inaccurate tool. So, emphasizing critical evaluation of every AI output is really important. Privacy and data security. If you just put data into AI or put information about yourself into AI, you really don't have any control over where that goes. So making sure that kids understand that is critical. Also making sure that they understand that the data that AI is creating or appears to be creating, if I say create this, it isn't actually new. It's using old data and reformatting it into a new way. So that can be plagiarism. So we do need to be aware of that. Another thing that people also tend not to think about is equity. AI usage is very divided on socioeconomic lines. So a lot of schools don't, they block AI on their computers. which means that those kids who don't have access to computers at home or technology at home won't have access to AI, whereas those kids who do still get to use it because it's not blocked at home. Also, those kids, even in schools, even if the school doesn't block it, those schools tend to be those schools in the higher socioeconomic uh, strata because they recognize that it's a valuable tool and have the time and the resources to investigate and teach with it appropriately. So there is an equity issue out there. And also over reliance. It's very, very easy to become very over reliant on AI and not um, think for yourself. So making sure that kids understand that it's critical to think for themselves and learn for themselves uh, and not be over reliant on AI tools. So our goals for today, really, I guess I've already started with one of them, which was to make sure that you had a base understanding of what artificial intelligence is. And next, we're going to move right into presenting what the Presidential AI Challenge is, share what your roles and expectations of your mentors are. We're going to talk about the project tracks and deliverables, and then talk about best practices, how to work with kids, things like that. So those are our roles or our goals for today, and we will move forward now. So why is this challenge important? There are a lot of reasons. So the challenge motivates kids to investigate and learn about artificial intelligence and the possibilities surrounding it. It promotes innovation as well as ethical use of our AI technologies. It develops STEM knowledge, which we always want our kids to have, problem solving abilities, digital literacy, things like that. It engages youth in practical, real world problem solving experiences. It allows our youth to become innovators. So let's talk about what an innovator is. The habits of an innovator: they learn from failure, they challenge the rules, they stay curious all the time, they're good collaborators, they're empathetic, and they take risks. And there's also actions that surround innovation. Kids learn how to uncover, how to implement new ideas, how to optimize and make those ideas as good as they can be. They learn design skills and they learn how to define problems as well as define solutions. So this challenge allows our kids to become innovators, and that's a really, really valuable thing. So there's different levels for the challenge. There's different groups. So there's two tracks. There's a track where the kids can learn about AI, come up with a solution, and document what they have learned and their suggestions for the solution for the problem that they came up with. And then there's a second track where they actually implement or create that solution. So they use AI tools and create that solution. So there's two tracks, but even inside each of those tracks, there's different groups. There's grades K through 5, grades 6 through 8, and grades 9 through 12. Now we do need to remember as we are working, especially with our younger groups, some of those grade levels, up to about age 10, kids generally don't recognize that AI is a machine. So if they're interacting with an AI tool, they tend to think that it's a human being behind that information. So it's really wise to kind of avoid even working with that group. So if I was working with this challenge, I probably would change that group to grades 3 through 5. I didn't get to make that choice, but that's my recommendation. Um, Teams. It talks about teams in all of the literature, and it says that you can have a team of 1 to 4 kids. So if you have a solo kid who needs to work by themselves for whatever reason, that is absolutely fine. I would recommend a group. Kids learn better when they work with others. They get to not only learn content, but they also learn how to work with other people and be creative together and bounce ideas off each other and things like that. So a group of 2 to 4 is ideal. Actually, a group of 2 to 3 is ideal. In my experience, that fourth group member tends to sit back and do nothing. But that's just me from the classroom. I learned that many years ago. Every group has to have an adult mentor. An adult mentor can mentor more than one group. So if you are a classroom teacher, if you are a club leader and have 5 groups, that is absolutely fine. You don't need to be a mentor for only one group. You can mentor for as many people as or groups as you want. And then there is a third track, a track 3 that is only educators. I'm going to say that it is creating an AI solution in education. And I'm not sure, I don't have that memorized. You do not have to know anything about AI to take part in this. So if you have a fourth grader who's just really excited about technology or just really excited about competing or innovating, then they absolutely can take part of this or in this and do the learning as they go. And therefore, you don't have to worry about what your background, what your skill level. Please join. So registration is open. Webinars are, I think there's one more webinar, but regardless, this is your webinar, so I don't have to worry about that, or you don't have to worry about that. The teamwork starts anytime until January 20th, and then this project submission is due January 20th. If you don't have it done by then, that's okay. You still learned something, and we'll find another way to celebrate your successes. And then, but the For the contest itself, regional and national judging happens in the spring of 26, and then the White House will have their finals there at the White House on June 7th through the 10th, if you're lucky enough to get there. The roles of the mentor. So it's really important that our mentors know that they aren't doing all of the work. They're simply providing project support and guidance and not completing all the tasks for the kids. But also listening to them and helping them reflect that iterative process. So they come up with an idea and talk through that idea, go back, make sure it's super easy for kids and adults to get very excited about an idea and make the scope of the project much too large to handle in that short of a time period. So a big part of your job is to make sure that their project goals are achievable, or that the scope of their goals are achievable, and make sure as they're learning about AI that they're using ethical practices, that that they're aware that there is bias and unfairness and fairness in AI, and we have to make sure that they're aware of that as they're learning, so that they are uh, getting all the tools they need. Make sure that you're encouraging collaboration. Like I said, there's a lot of learning to be done in group work. So if they are working as a group, that is ideal. They can practice problem solving skills as well as collaboration. So there is a framework, and it is on the website that you signed up for this on or found this on. Take a look at that framework. It's just a guide. Keep in mind, as a guide, it can be done out of order. And that's kind of the best part about the invention process or the creation process, is that sometimes you do something and then you think about it and you talk about it, and then you have to go back and do it again and do it again. And just to make sure that it is the right way, the way that you want it to be. And so we tried to create that framework so that it is flexible and so on. Part of your job is to organize the team's schedule. They're going to need work sessions. They're going to need time to think through all of this. So make sure that your teams know when that time is. If you're a classroom teacher, that's super easy. Just fit it into your day. If you're a club leader, that might be a little bit more difficult. If you're mentoring because your youth need very specialized knowledge, you might be just communicating over email. So it just depends. There is also a youth guide. So that guide is very similar to the mentor guide, but a little bit more robust in that there's space for them to write and to draw and to think things through and share thoughts. Um, so I talked a little bit about the innovation process. This is more in depth. Each or the mentor guide as well as the youth guide has these steps in there, the 7 steps of innovation. So they identify a problem. So help your youth choose a real world issue that they care about. This might be a whole group thing. It might be each kid brainstorm quietly and then go back as a group. It might be any number of things. But come up with a real world issue. And it might be as simple as, I don't know, a way to schedule meal planning better, or it might be, you know, identifying food deserts and directing food that way. I think that actually was a project. But yeah, that is a project. Sorry. Um, so identify an issue and then gain an understanding of what that problem is and explore the ways that AI could help. And so this is your research. This is where they really go in depth. So that might be more than one session. It might only be, if it's a minor problem, then it might not take that long to figure out how to solve it. So it just kind of depends. Then once they've identified the problem and understand the possible ways to solve that problem, then brainstorm those solutions and ideate through that. And that might take a while. Once you've got something that you think might work, design it. If it's track one, then that design might just be a flow chart. If it's track two, you might actually start drawing and building things out, and then move into that building and flow charts and drawings and things like that, demonstrating the concept. Then you test it, and if it doesn't work, it's okay to go back all the way back to the ideating or understanding step. That is absolutely fine to start over. So make sure that you build that time in when you are working on your schedule. The final part is to communicate and teach kids how to write out their solution. Because if you can have the best ideas in the world, if you can't communicate them, then they aren't worth anything. So make sure that they step through communicating and you work through how to communicate your solution. Um, in each meeting, you're probably going to want each kid to have a role. If there's more than one kid in a group, they're definitely making sure that everybody has a job is critical. And I would actually rotate through those jobs. So every week or every meeting, you're going to have a group leader and maybe a note taker and maybe a researcher. Depends on what it is. Maybe a builder. Depends on what meeting it is. That might change. Um, but rotate through there. You don't want the same kid being the group leader every single time. You want everybody to have that opportunity. Make sure that you talk with them as they're going through. And in the framework, this is very formal. It doesn't necessarily have to be, but make sure that you have time built in to just chat with the kids. What's stressing you out? What's worrying you? What are the positives here? What are the negatives? How can we help you? How can you fix this if you aren't happy with it? How can we solve this problem together? Things like that. It's very important. Give them lots and lots of feedback uh, about their project, about how they're working, all those things, and make sure that they aren't afraid to ask for feedback. So you want positive feedback, and you can sandwich that if you need to. So if if what you're seeing isn't working out real well, say, I really like how hard you worked on this. Have you tried doing this, this, and this? I know you can figure this out. You're working so hard on it. Things like that. You don't want to be very negative the whole time, but you also do want to direct them in a way that will help them learn. All right, so other resources. There is, of course, the official challenge guidebook on top of the resources that I have shared on this website. Um, there's the mentor resources and the youth resources. I need to update this page. I am recording this Zoom, so I will post this on our website as soon as possible, or it is posted, or you wouldn't be seeing it, I guess. I will have Q&A assistance. All you have to do is email me, and your local 4-H extension staff they may not be experts, but they do know how to find somebody who is going to be able to help you. And email me with any questions. And thanks so much.